All right, let's get right into it. We're about to dive into the incredible skill of really understanding people. We'll be using some powerful insights from Patrick King's book, Read People Like a Book, to give you the tools you need to decode that unspoken language, the stuff that tells you what's really going on.
You know, we've all been there. You're in a meeting, maybe on a date, or just chatting with a friend, and you get this feeling, this sense that there's a whole other conversation happening just beneath the surface, and you just wish you could peek behind the curtain and know what they're actually thinking.
And that's the key, right there. This isn't about becoming a mind reader or getting some kind of superpower. No, this is a skill. It's about learning to pay attention, to sharpen your observation, and to use a framework to figure out the signals people are constantly sending out, a lot of the time without even knowing it. So, to get a handle on what people do, we have to start with the biggest question of all. Why do they do it? So, this first section, it's all about uncovering those hidden drivers of human behavior.
See, every single action has a reason behind it. This quote really hits the nail on the head. Our very first step is to become detectives of human motivation. If we can work backward from what someone does, we can start to piece together the puzzle of their real desires, their fears, and what's truly driving them.
At the end of the day, so much of our behavior comes down to one powerful, super simple idea: the pleasure principle. We are literally hardwired to chase after good feelings and run away from pain. But here's the real kicker from the book. The drive to avoid pain is often way, way stronger than the desire to feel good. That's a huge clue you've got to remember.
And that idea flows perfectly into this classic framework, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Just think of this pyramid as a roadmap for what makes people tick. A person's immediate concerns tell you exactly which level they're living on at that moment. Are they worried about losing their job? Bam, that's the safety level. Are they totally focused on getting that promotion? Well, that's esteem. It's an amazing shortcut for figuring out what really matters to someone right now.
Okay, so we've talked about the invisible why. Now, let's dig into the visible how. How do all these deep motivations and feelings actually show up in the real world? Well, it's all about what the body is telling us.
This right here, this is the golden rule of reading people. We can choose our words so carefully, right? Polish them up perfectly. But our bodies are just way more honest. Nonverbal signals are mostly instinctual, they're spontaneous, and they give you a direct pipeline into how someone's truly feeling.
You can think of it like this. Our words are like the official press release we put out to the world. It's the version of ourselves we want everyone to see. But our body language, that's the raw, unfiltered, behind-the-scenes footage streaming directly from our subconscious. So when the words say one thing, but the body says another, you trust the body, every single time. Okay, this is so cool. A huge part of this story is told by the face, through something called microexpressions. A researcher named Paul Ekman discovered that these 6 expressions are totally universal. They mean the exact same thing in every culture on Earth. They are these tiny split-second muscle movements that just flash across a person's face, revealing a genuine emotion before their brain even has a chance to cover it up. Spotting one of these is like getting a direct, unfiltered peek into someone's soul.
And that brings us to an absolutely critical rule. Context is everything. You can never, ever jump to a conclusion based on just one signal. I mean, is someone crossing their arms because they're feeling defensive? Or are they just cold? You can't know from that alone. But if they cross their arms, and they clench their jaw, and they angle their body away from you, well, now you've got a cluster. And that cluster is telling you a very, very clear story.
All right, let's zoom out for a second. We've been looking at these in-the-moment signals, right? But what about the bigger picture? Let's talk about the underlying personality traits that shape how people behave over the long haul.
So this brings us to the Big Five, which is one of the most reliable and respected models in all of psychology for understanding personality. Now, this isn't about shoving people into boxes. It's about seeing where they fall on 5 key spectrums. Just think about someone you know. Are they super organized, always on top of things? That's high conscientiousness. Do they get their energy from being around a ton of people? That's extroversion. Just by getting a rough idea of these 5 traits, you can build a surprisingly accurate profile and get much better at predicting how someone is likely to act. Okay, we've got the theories down, from motivations to body language to personality. Now it's time to put on our detective hats. How do we actually go out into the world and start gathering all these clues?
This brings us to this really fascinating concept called thin slicing. It's our brain's incredible, almost magical ability to make these quick and often freakishly accurate judgments from just a tiny sliver of information. It's that gut feeling you get about someone the moment you meet them. Now, the trick is to treat that intuition not as the final answer, but as your starting hypothesis, something you then test with careful, conscious observation.
And we can actually make this a really practical method with this simple checklist. First, you establish a baseline. What is this person's normal way of being? How do they usually talk, sit, and gesture? Once you've got that, then you start looking for deviations. When you bring up a certain topic, does their posture suddenly change? Does their voice go up an octave? And finally, you look for those clusters we talked about to confirm what you're seeing. This is how you go from just guessing to systematically observing someone.
And you gotta remember, the clues aren't just in their body language. You have to be like Sherlock Holmes at a crime scene. You look at the whole picture. How a person dresses, their grooming, the specific words they tend to use, even the state of their apartment or their desk. All of these things are extensions of their personality and their values. They're broadcasting clues about who they are all the time.
Okay, we have covered a ton of ground, so let's pull all of these powerful ideas together into one practical toolkit that you can literally start using the second this is over.
So here it is, your complete people reading toolkit. You start with the why, get a handle on their deep motivations. Then you watch the how. Trust the body, not just the words, and always look for those clusters. You zoom out to see the bigger patterns of their personality, using frameworks like the Big Five. You act like a detective by setting a baseline and spotting the changes. And finally, you learn to use your own intuition by thin slicing. This is your whole guide, right here.
So, I'll leave you with this question. How are you going to put this into practice? The very next conversation you have, what's the first new clue you're going to intentionally look for? Is it going to be a microexpression, a shift from their baseline, a cluster of gestures? Deciding on that one thing right now is the first step to turning all this knowledge into a real, usable skill.